The moment Lena Vale discovered her name had been erased from Manhattan's most exclusive charity gala, replaced by her husband's mistress, she didn't scream. She didn't beg. She opened her laptop and began dismantling the man who thought she was nobody. Adrian Cross believed his wife was a harmless housewife playing with computers. He had no idea she was the secret CEO of a tech empire about to explode across the city. Tonight, while he celebrates what he thinks is his coronation, Lena is about to walk through those ballroom doors and show him exactly who holds the power. If you want to see a man who underestimated his wife get everything he deserves, stick around until the end of this story. And when you do, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The penthouse on Park Avenue gleamed like a museum after hours, all glass and marble and carefully curated silence. Lena Vale stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city lights flicker 23 stories below, and felt the familiar weight of invisibility settle over her shoulders like expensive perfume. Behind her, Adrian Cross moved through their shared space with the distracted efficiency of a man who had already mentally left the building. His footsteps were purposeful against the imported Italian tile, the same tile he'd chosen without asking her opinion, the same tile that cost more than most people's annual salaries. "I'll be late again tonight," he said, not looking up from his phone. His voice carried that particular tone of preemptive dismissal, the one that meant he wasn't actually informing her so much as preventing her from asking questions. "Big case. You understand." Lena turned from the window, studying the man she'd married 6 years ago in a ceremony that had felt more like a corporate merger than a wedding. Adrian was handsome in the way that Manhattan lawyers were handsome. Sharp suits, sharper jawline, everything about him designed to project competence and control. His dark hair was already styled for whatever meeting he was rushing toward, and his Tom Ford suit probably cost more than the engagement ring he'd given her. "Of course," she said quietly. "I understand." And she did understand. She understood exactly what late meant. She understood that big case was code for drinks with Sloane Kerr, the ambitious associate who'd been leaving her lipstick on Adrian's collar for the past 8 months. She understood that Adrian believed her too naive, too gentle, too focused on her little computer hobby to notice the obvious. What Adrian didn't understand was that Lena had stopped caring about his affairs around the same time she'd stopped caring about their marriage. Somewhere between the 3rd time he'd talked over her at a dinner party and the 100th time he'd introduced her as just my wife, Lena had made a decision that would change everything. She'd decided to stop being invisible. Adrian grabbed his briefcase, already mentally gone. "Don't wait up." The door closed behind him with a soft, expensive click. Lena waited exactly 30 seconds, counting the time in her head, and then walked to her home office, the room Adrian mockingly called her computer corner, as if she were a child playing games instead of building an empire. Her setup didn't look like much from the outside. A sleek desk, 3 monitors, the kind of ergonomic chair that tech professionals swore by. But what lived inside those computers, what existed in the encrypted servers and carefully hidden financial accounts, was a company that had been growing in the shadows for the past 4 years. Vale Innovations. The name alone sent ripples through certain circles in Silicon Valley and Manhattan's tech district. A private company, notoriously secretive, led by an anonymous CEO, who preferred to let the work speak for itself. Their artificial intelligence platform had revolutionized data security for Fortune 500 companies. Their proprietary software had streamlined operations for 3 of the top 10 tech giants in America. And their upcoming product launch, a breakthrough in machine learning that would fundamentally change how corporations handled sensitive information, was about to make waves that would reach far beyond the tech world. Adrian had no idea, none of it. To him, Lena was dabbling in technology, playing around with computers, a harmless hobby for a housewife who had too much time and too little ambition. Lena pulled up her encrypted communications, scanning through the messages from her team. 15 employees now, all working remotely, all brilliant, all bound by ND. As that would make a corporate lawyer weep with joy. They were scattered across the country. Programmers in Austin, designers in Portland, business strategists in Chicago. None of them had ever met their CEO in person. None of them knew she was married to Adrian Cross, rising star at Whitmore & Associates, one of Manhattan's most prestigious law firms. The separation between her two lives was complete and deliberate. Adrian lived in a world of appearances and status, where power meant corner offices and partnership tracks. Lena had built something real in the darkness, something that would soon eclipse everything Adrian had worked for. Her phone buzzed. A message from Marcus Chen, her CFO, and the only person who knew her true identity. Final confirmation. Foundation accepted the sponsorship. Gala announcement goes live tomorrow morning. Are you ready for this? Lena's fingers hovered over the keyboard. The charity gala was in 3 weeks. The Whitmore Foundation's annual event, the social crown jewel of Adrian's year. He'd been talking about it for months, who would be there, which partners would notice him, how this was his chance to prove he belonged in the firm's upper echelon. She typed back, "Ready, let's do this." What Adrian didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that Lena had just become the gala's primary sponsor. Vale Innovations had written a check that made every other donor look like they were playing with pocket change. In 3 weeks, when the foundation announced their mystery benefactor, Lena was going to step out of the shadows and into a spotlight so bright that Adrian's carefully constructed world would burn to ashes around him. But that was 3 weeks away. Tonight, Lena had other work to do. She pulled up the latest development reports, losing herself in the clean logic of code and projections. This was where she belonged, not at Adrian's side like an ornament, but here in the driver's seat of something that mattered. Her team had just finalized the security protocols for their new platform. Beta testing was exceeding expectations, and the pre-launch buzz in the industry was already generating interest from companies that made Adrian's biggest clients look like corner stores. Hours passed. The city outside her windows shifted from evening to deep night, the traffic thinning to occasional streaks of headlights. Lena worked until her eyes burned, until the code blurred together, until she'd reviewed every report and approved every decision that needed her attention. It was past midnight when she finally closed her laptop and walked back to the master bedroom. Adrian wasn't home yet, no surprise there. He was probably at Sloane's apartment right now, spinning whatever story he told himself to justify the betrayal. Maybe he told himself that Lena didn't notice. Maybe he told himself she didn't care. Maybe he told himself that what he was doing wasn't really wrong because Lena was so passive, so quiet, so completely unaware of how the world actually worked. Lena changed into sleep clothes and slid between sheets that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The bed felt enormous and empty, but she'd gotten used to that. She'd gotten used to a lot of things in 6 years of marriage to a man who saw her as scenery. Sleep came slowly, interrupted by thoughts of the gala, of the moment when everything would change. She played it out in her mind, the announcement, the reveal, the look on Adrian's face when he realized that the woman he'd been dismissing as irrelevant was actually the most powerful person in the room. Would he understand immediately? Or would there be that beautiful, terrible moment of confusion when his brain couldn't reconcile what his eyes were seeing? Lena fell asleep, smiling. The next morning arrived with the kind of crystalline sunshine that made Manhattan look like a postcard. Lena woke to an empty bed. Adrian had either come home very late or not at all. She didn't check, didn't care. Her phone showed 3 messages from Marcus. Announcement went live at 8 a.m. Foundation is thrilled. Press release hits at noon. Early response is incredible. You're about to be very, very famous. Hope you're ready for this, boss. No going back now. Lena got up, made herself coffee in the kind of espresso machine that Adrian had insisted they needed, and opened her laptop. The Foundation's website had been updated overnight. Right there on the homepage, an elegant script. The Whitmore Foundation is honored to announce our visionary partner for this year's annual gala, Vale Innovations, whose generous support makes our mission possible. Below that, a carefully worded statement about the company's commitment to education and opportunity, the kinds of phrases that sounded good in press releases but didn't reveal anything concrete. No CEO named, no leadership identified, just the company name and a promise that their representative would be present at the gala to accept the foundation's recognition. Lena was reading through the announcement when she heard the front door open. Adrian's footsteps slower than usual, almost tentative. He appeared in the kitchen doorway looking rumpled and guilty, the particular combination that meant he'd spent the night somewhere else and was now preparing his excuse. "Morning," he said carefully, testing the waters. "Good morning." Lena didn't look up from her coffee. "There's fresh coffee if you want it. Adrian moved into the kitchen, pouring himself a cup with the kind of deliberate focus people used when they were trying to appear casual. I crashed at the office. Case ran later than expected. Lena made a non-committal sound that could have meant anything. She'd learned over the years that Adrian preferred her responses to be vague and unbothered. It made his lies easier. Listen, Adrian set down his cup, his voice shifting into what Lena privately called his lawyer mode, the tone he used when he was about to present an argument he'd already decided was airtight. About the gala. Lena's heartbeat kicked up, but she kept her expression neutral. What about it? There's been a complication. Adrian ran his hand through his hair, messing up the careful styling. The foundation is dealing with some space constraints. They're having to be really selective about the guest list. I see. Lena took a sip of coffee, watching him over the rim of her cup. And given that it's primarily a work event for me, networking, client management, that kind of thing, we thought it might make sense for you to sit this one out. The words came out in a rush, practiced but not quite smooth enough to hide the lie underneath. You'd be bored anyway. All lawyer talk and foundation business, not really your scene. There it was. The excuse wrapped up with a bow. Lena felt something cold and sharp crystallize in her chest. Not quite anger, not quite hurt. Something more like clarity. Who suggested that? She asked quietly. You or the foundation? Adrian's eyes flickered, just for a second, just enough. It was a mutual decision. Everyone agreed it made the most sense. Everyone. The planning committee. They're trying to keep the head count manageable. He was warming to the lie now, building on it. You understand how these things are. Politics, optics. It's nothing personal. Lena set down her coffee cup with careful precision. Of course. I understand completely. Relief washed over Adrian's face. He'd expected pushback, maybe tears. Instead, he got exactly what he always got from Lena. Quiet acceptance, easy compliance. I knew you'd get it. You're so good about these things. I am, aren't I? Lena stood, gathering her phone and laptop. Will you be home for dinner? Probably not. Busy week. Adrian was already pulling out his own phone, mentally moving past the conversation. Crisis averted. Problem solved. Wife managed. Then I'll see you when I see you. Lena walked toward her office, her steps steady and calm. Behind her, she heard Adrian exhale, the sound of a man who just dodged an uncomfortable conversation and gotten exactly what he wanted. He had no idea that he'd just handed Lena the final piece of motivation she needed. No idea that while he was congratulating himself on managing his wife's expectations, she was walking into her office to finalize the most spectacular public revelation of his career. Inside her office, Lena closed the door and leaned against it for a long moment. Her hands were shaking, not with hurt, but with something fiercer, something that felt like power finally uncaged. She pulled up her encrypted messaging and typed quickly. Marcus, change of plans. I want the announcement upgraded. Not just the company name. I want my name, my title, everything. And I want it released the morning of the gala. I want to walk into that ballroom as the CEO everyone's been speculating about. The response came within seconds. You sure that's going nuclear? Lena looked at her reflection in the dark computer screen. The woman Adrian thought was too quiet, too passive, too irrelevant to matter. I'm sure. Let's show them exactly who they've been underestimating. Consider it done, boss. This is going to be legendary. Lena spent the rest of the morning working, but her mind kept drifting to the image. Adrian walking into that gala with Sloane on his arm, confident and untouchable, ready for his moment of triumph. And then the announcement, the name, the revelation, the complete and total destruction of everything he thought he knew. Her phone rang around noon, an unlisted number. Lena answered cautiously. Mrs. Cross? A woman's voice, professional and warm. This is Catherine Mills from the Whitmore Foundation. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time. Lena's pulse jumped, but her voice stayed steady. Not at all. How can I help you? I wanted to reach out personally about the gala. I understand there was some confusion about the guest list. Confusion? Lena kept her tone light, curious. Your name was listed initially, but it was removed last week. I wanted to confirm that this was done with your knowledge and consent. Catherine's voice carried a note of concern that sounded genuine. We pride ourselves on being inclusive, and I was surprised to see a change made without documentation. Adrian had removed her name himself, directly. Not through some committee decision or space constraint. He'd personally gone to the foundation and erased her from the list. I appreciate you checking, Lena said carefully. My husband mentioned that the event was primarily for his professional networking. I didn't realize my name had been officially listed. You were on the original list as his spouse. Catherine sounded uncomfortable now. Mrs. Cross, I want to be very clear, you are absolutely welcome at this event. In fact, given that Veil Innovations is our primary sponsor this year, we would be honored to have you there. Their CEO will be attending, and we're expecting quite a few prominent figures from the tech industry. It might be more interesting than your husband suggested. The irony was so perfect that Lena almost laughed. Catherine Mills was trying to convince the CEO of Veil Innovations that she should attend the event she was sponsoring. That's very kind of you, Lena said. I'll think about it. Please do. And Mrs. Cross, if you do decide to attend, I'll make sure your name is back on the list personally. No one should feel excluded from an event celebrating partnership and community. After they hung up, Lena sat very still, processing the conversation. Adrian hadn't just removed her name through some administrative channel. He'd personally contacted the foundation and told them she wouldn't be coming. Had he claimed she was sick? Unwilling? Had he simply said she wasn't important enough to include? It didn't matter. What mattered was that he'd made the decision unilaterally, without consulting her, without even acknowledging that she might have a right to be there. Because to Adrian, Lena didn't have rights. She had permissions. And he'd decided to revoke this one. Lena pulled up her calendar, looking at the 3 weeks stretched between now and the gala. 3 weeks to prepare. 3 weeks to make sure every detail was perfect. 3 weeks until Adrian Cross learned the most expensive lesson of his life. She opened a new message to Marcus. Catherine Mills from the foundation just called. Adrian personally removed my name from the guest list. I want documentation of everything, every email, every communication about the sponsorship. When this goes public, I want the timeline crystal clear. On it. This guy really has no idea who he married, does he? None at all. That's what makes this beautiful. Lena spent the afternoon coordinating with her team, reviewing the final details of their product launch. The timing was perfect. The gala announcement would break the same week their new platform went live. The tech industry would be buzzing about Veil Innovations just as Manhattan's social elite learned that the company's CEO had been hiding in plain sight. And Adrian, who'd spent 6 years treating her like expensive furniture, would be standing in the center of the earthquake with nowhere to hide. Around 6 p.m., her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Lena opened it cautiously. Lena, it's Sloan. We should talk. Lena stared at the message, a cold smile touching her lips. Sloan Kerr, the ambitious associate, the other woman, the replacement who'd been added to the guest list in Lena's place. She deleted the message without responding. Whatever Sloan wanted to say, whether it was a threat, a confession, or some twisted attempt at girl talk, Lena had no interest. In 3 weeks, Sloan would understand exactly how irrelevant she was to Lena's world. The days that followed fell into a strange rhythm. Adrian came and went like a ghost, barely present even when he was physically in the penthouse. He talked endlessly about the gala, which partners would be there, which clients he needed to impress, how this was his chance to prove himself to the firm's leadership. Lena listened and nodded and said all the right things while privately working 18-hour days to prepare for her own entrance. Marcus sent daily updates. Press kit is ready. Your bio reads like a tech industry fairy tale. Wait until they see this. Legal team confirmed. Every patent, every trademark, everything is bulletproof. Nobody can question your ownership. Beta testing numbers are insane. Product launch is going to break records. Perfect timing with the gala reveal. 2 weeks before the event, Lena received another call from Catherine Mills. Mrs. Cross, I wanted to give you advance notice. We'll be making a major announcement at the gala about Veil Innovations and their CEO. The timing is incredibly exciting. It's rare that we get to reveal something this significant. I thought you might want to know, given your husband's role with the foundation. That sounds wonderful, Lena said, keeping her voice warm and unsuspecting. I'm sure Adrian will be thrilled. Will you be joining us after all? I have to admit, I'd love to have you there. The energy is going to be incredible. I'll think about it, Lena said again. Thank you for the invitation. She hung up and sat very still, imagining the scene. Catherine Mills thrilled about the big reveal, having no idea that the CEO she was so excited to announce was the same woman whose invitation she'd had to personally restore because the woman's own husband had tried to erase her from the guest list. The irony was exquisite. 1 week before the gala, Adrian came home in the middle of the afternoon, unusual enough that Lena looked up from her laptop in surprise. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Better than okay." Adrian was practically vibrating with excitement. "The foundation just confirmed. I'm introducing the keynote speaker this year. Do you know what that means? Every senior partner will be watching. This is huge, Lena. This could make my career." "That's wonderful," Lena said quietly. "Congratulations." Adrian crossed to where she sat, and for a moment he looked almost like the man she'd married. Excited, hopeful, young. "I know I've been distant lately. Work has been crazy. But after this gala, things are going to change. I'll make partner within 2 years. We can start thinking about a bigger place, maybe something in the Hamptons for weekends. This is the beginning of everything we've worked for." Everything we've worked for. As if Lena's invisible labor, maintaining his home, managing his social calendar, playing the perfect wife at firm events, counted as partnership in his success. "I'm happy for you," she said, and meant it in a way he couldn't possibly understand. She was happy. Happy that his moment of triumph would also be his moment of devastating revelation. "You're the best, you know that?" Adrian kissed the top of her head absently, already thinking about whatever came next. "Most wives would be upset about missing the gala, but you just get it. You understand how important this is." "I do," Lena agreed. "I really do." After he left, back to the office, back to Sloan, back to the life he thought he was building, Lena returned to her computer and pulled up the final press release. There she was, in carefully crafted paragraphs. Lena Vale, CEO and founder of Vale Innovations. The release detailed her background in computer science, her years of quiet development work, the company's meteoric rise in the tech sector. It mentioned her philanthropic interests, her commitment to education and opportunity. It painted a picture of a woman who'd built an empire in the shadows and was now ready to step into the light. What it didn't mention was Adrian Cross. Didn't mention her marriage. Didn't mention the penthouse or the invisible years or the man who'd thought she was nobody. That story would tell itself when she walked through those ballroom doors. 3 days before the gala, Lena went shopping. Not to the boutiques Adrian preferred, where saleswomen called her Mrs. Cross and suggested appropriate choices for a lawyer's wife. Instead, she went to the designers who dressed tech industry royalty, who understood that power didn't always come in pastel and pearls. She tried on dress after dress until she found it. Midnight blue silk that looked black until the light hit it, structured like armor but flowing like water. It wasn't the kind of dress that whispered. It was the kind of dress that announced. The saleswoman, who clearly recognized quality when she saw it, nodded approvingly. "This is a statement piece. Where are you wearing it?" "To change my life," Lena said simply. The dress cost more than Adrian had spent on their wedding. Lena didn't blink at the price. 2 days before the gala, Marcus called. "Everything's set. Press release goes live at 8 a.m. on Gala Day. By the time people start arriving at the event, your name will be everywhere. Tech blogs, business news, social media, the whole digital ecosystem will be buzzing about the mysterious CEO finally revealed." "And the foundation knows?" Lena asked. "Catherine Mills knows. I spoke with her personally. She's coordinating the announcement during the event. Lena, she's thrilled. She had no idea you were the CEO, and when I told her the connection to Adrian Cross," Marcus laughed. "She didn't say it directly, but I got the impression she's not Adrian's biggest fan." "Interesting." "One more thing," Marcus said. "I did some digging on Sloan Kerr, your husband's +1. I didn't ask you to do that. I know. But I did it anyway because I'm thorough and because I wanted to make sure there were no surprises. Lena, she's not just his mistress. She's been using the relationship to get inside information on his cases. There's evidence she's been feeding details to a competitor firm." Lena processed this information silently. "You're certain?" "Absolutely. I can send you the documentation if you want it. No, Lena said slowly. That's Adrian's problem to solve. I'm not interested in destroying her. I'm only interested in revealing myself. You're a better person than I am, boss. No, Lena said quietly. I'm just focused on what matters. Sloane Kerr is a symptom. Adrian is the disease. And after tomorrow night, I won't have to worry about either of them ever again. That night, Adrian came home late, as usual. Lena was in bed reading when he slipped in beside her. Big day tomorrow, he said into the darkness. Yes, Lena agreed. It is. Are you sure you're okay missing it? I know you said you understood, but I'm fine, Adrian. And she was. She was better than fine. She was hours away from the most satisfying moment of her entire life. You're amazing, Adrian said, already half asleep. I don't tell you that enough. You're just perfect. So easy. So understanding. Lena lay in the darkness, listening to his breathing slow and even out. So easy. So understanding. The words echoed in her mind like a eulogy for a version of herself that had stopped existing somewhere in the past 4 years. Tomorrow, Adrian would learn that easy and understanding weren't the same as weak and ignorant. Tomorrow, he would learn that the woman lying beside him in the dark was the most powerful person he'd ever underestimated. Tomorrow, everything would change. Lena closed her eyes and smiled into the darkness, counting down the hours until sunrise. Morning arrived with the kind of clarity that made everything feel inevitable. Lena woke at 5:30, alone in the bed that had long ago stopped feeling like a shared space. Adrian's side was already empty. He'd left sometime in the early hours, probably unable to sleep through the excitement of his big night. She lay still for a moment, listening to the silence of the penthouse, feeling the weight of what was about to happen settle over her like that midnight blue dress hanging in her closet. Today. Everything changed today. Her phone showed a message from Marcus, time-stamped at 5:47 a.m. Press release goes live in 13 minutes. You ready to become famous? Lena typed back, I've been ready for 4 years. She got up, made coffee, and opened her laptop to watch the countdown. At exactly 8 a.m., the announcement hit every major tech news outlet simultaneously. Lena watched the headlines populate across her screen like dominoes falling. Vale Innovations CEO revealed, Meet Lena Vale, the tech industry's best-kept secret. Manhattan Powerhouse anonymous CEO steps into spotlight. Vale Innovations announces revolutionary AI platform and its mysterious founder. Each article featured the same professional photograph. Lena in a sharp blazer, standing against a backdrop of city lights, looking directly at the camera with the kind of confidence that came from knowing exactly who you were and what you'd built. The image bore no resemblance to the quiet wife who attended firm dinners on Adrian's arm. Her phone started buzzing almost immediately. Unknown numbers, email notifications, message requests flooding in from journalists, tech bloggers, industry analysts. Everyone wanted the story of how she'd built a multi-million-dollar company in complete secrecy. Everyone wanted to know where she'd come from, how she'd stayed hidden, what was next. Lena ignored them all. There would be time for interviews later, time for the press circuit and the profile pieces. Right now, she had more important things to focus on. At 9:30, Catherine Mills called. Lena? Catherine's voice was warm but carried an undercurrent of something sharper. I've been trying to reach you since the announcement broke. I have to ask, did you know we were planning to reveal your identity tonight? I did, Lena said calmly. My team coordinated with yours. Then you also know that your husband has no idea. It wasn't a question. Catherine had clearly put the pieces together. Lena, I need to be direct with you. When Adrian requested that your name be removed from the guest list, he told us you were dealing with health issues and wouldn't be comfortable in a large social setting. There it was. The actual lie. Not space constraints or committee decisions. Adrian had told the foundation that Lena was sick, had painted her as fragile, unable to handle the stress of a party. I see, Lena said quietly. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand that the foundation had no part in excluding you. We would never have removed your name if we'd known the real situation. Catherine paused. And I want you to know that you are not only welcome at tonight's event, you're the guest of honor. As our primary sponsor in the evening's featured announcement, you should be there. I'll be there, Lena said. Thank you for the invitation, Catherine. There's one more thing. Catherine's voice dropped slightly. The program has your husband introducing the keynote speaker, which happens right before our sponsorship announcement. I can change the order if you'd prefer. I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable position. Lena considered this carefully. Adrian, standing at the podium, basking in the attention, delivering his carefully rehearsed introduction. And then, moments later, the revelation that would shatter his entire worldview. Don't change anything, Lena said. The timing is perfect as it is. After they hung up, Lena sat with her coffee and watched the news coverage expand. Social media was exploding with speculation about Veil innovations. Tech industry insiders were posting their theories about how she'd stayed anonymous for so long. Business analysts were racing to value the company based on the limited information available. And somewhere in Manhattan, Adrian was probably just seeing the news. Probably scrolling through headlines about a company called Veil Innovations, not making the connection, not understanding that his entire world was about to implode. Her phone rang again. This time, the caller ID showed Adrian's office number. Hello? Lena kept her voice neutral, unsuspecting. Lena. Adrian sounded distracted, voices murmuring in the background. Have you seen the news about this Veil Innovations company? I saw something, Lena said carefully. Why? They're the foundation's big sponsor this year. Apparently the CEO is some genius who's been operating in secret. Adrian was clearly reading from something, his voice taking on that particular tone he used when he was trying to sound knowledgeable. The announcement is tonight at the Gala. Should be interesting. Might be some good networking opportunities if I can get close to her. Her. Adrian knew the CEO was a woman and still hadn't made the connection. Lena felt a cold satisfaction settle in her chest. Sounds exciting, she said. Yeah, it could be huge for the firm if we can land them as a client. Tech companies like this need serious legal representation. Adrian was warming to the topic now, spinning out his fantasy. I'm thinking I'll position myself near the announcement. Make sure I'm one of the first to introduce myself. Good strategy, Lena said, taking a sip of her coffee. Listen, I have to go. Tonight's going to run late. There's an after-party at the plaza. Don't wait up. I won't, Lena promised. Have a wonderful time, Adrian. She hung up and sat very still, processing the conversation. Adrian was planning to network with her, to position himself for an introduction to the mysterious CEO, whose company he'd probably walked past 1,000 times in their own home without noticing. The irony was so perfect, it almost hurt. At 11 a.m., a delivery arrived at the penthouse, the kind of black town car that meant either something very good or very bad was happening. Lena watched from the window as a driver emerged carrying a large box with the distinctive logo of the salon she'd visited earlier that week. Inside were the dress, professionally pressed and wrapped in tissue, along with a note from the stylist. For the woman who's about to change everything, knock them dead. M. Lena carried the box to her bedroom and laid the dress across the bed, studying it in the afternoon light. It looked even more powerful than she remembered, the kind of garment that transformed whoever wore it. Not a costume, but armor, a declaration. She spent the afternoon in careful preparation, each step deliberate and meaningful. This wasn't like getting ready for one of Adrian's firm events, where she'd learned to make herself pretty but invisible, attractive but unthreatening. This was different. This was putting on the face of a CEO, a founder, a woman who'd built something real and was ready to claim it publicly. At 4 p.m., her phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. Traffic on the announcement is insane. You're trending on 3 platforms. The tech world is losing its mind trying to figure out how you stayed hidden this long. Good. Let them wonder. You nervous? Lena looked at her reflection in the mirror, hair swept into an elegant twist, makeup applied with precision. The midnight blue dress transforming her into someone Adrian wouldn't recognize even if he looked directly at her. Not even a little bit. I'm ready. At 5:30, she received a text from an unknown number. Mrs. Cross, this is Catherine Mills. Your car is waiting downstairs whenever you're ready. The driver knows to bring you through the private entrance. See you soon. Lena gathered her clutch, took one final look around the penthouse that had been her beautiful prison for 6 years, and walked out the door without looking back. The drive to the venue took 20 minutes through early evening traffic. Lena sat in the back of the town car, watching the city scroll past, feeling oddly calm. She'd imagined this moment for months, played out 1,000 variations of how it might unfold. Now that it was actually happening, everything felt clear and simple. The car pulled up to a side entrance of the Metropolitan Club, one of Manhattan's most exclusive venues. Catherine Mills was waiting in the corridor, dressed in an elegant black gown that somehow managed to look both formal and friendly. Lena. Catherine's smile was genuine, warm. You look absolutely stunning. Thank you for coordinating all of this, Lena said. Are you kidding? This is the most exciting event we've had in years. Catherine gestured down the corridor. The cocktail hour is already underway. Most of the guests have arrived. Your husband is here. He came early, actually. He's been working the room since 6. Of course he had. Adrian never missed an opportunity to network. When would you like to make your entrance? Catherine asked. We have you scheduled for the announcement during dinner, but you're welcome to join the cocktail hour if you'd prefer. Lena considered this. She could walk in now, blend with the crowd, watch Adrian from across the room without him recognizing her. Or she could wait, let the tension build, time her entrance for maximum impact. I'll wait, she said. I'd like to come in just before the announcement. Catherine nodded approvingly. Dramatic timing. I like it. There's a private room down the hall where you can wait. I'll come get you when it's time. The private room was small but elegant. Cream walls, comfortable seating, a mirror where Lena could check her appearance one final time. She sat carefully, mindful of the dress, and pulled out her phone to check the latest news. The stories about Veil Innovations had evolved throughout the day. Now journalists were digging into her background, trying to piece together her history. They'd found her college records. Computer science degree from MIT, graduated top of her class. They tracked down some of her early research papers, the ones that had laid the groundwork for her company's proprietary technology. They were building a narrative of a brilliant woman who'd chosen privacy over publicity, substance over spectacle. What they hadn't found yet was the connection to Adrian Cross. That revelation was still to come. At 7:15, Catherine returned. It's time. The ballroom is full, dinner is being served, and everyone is buzzing about the announcement. Are you ready? Lena stood, smoothed the midnight blue silk one final time, and met Catherine's eyes. I'm ready. They walked through the corridor together, the sound of the gala growing louder with each step, conversations, laughter, the gentle clink of crystal and silverware. The kind of sounds that accompanied power and money and influence. Catherine paused in the door that led to the main ballroom. The foundation announcement comes right after your husband's introduction of the keynote speaker. He's up there now, actually. You'll enter from the side and I'll introduce you from the stage. The entire room will stand. It's tradition for our primary sponsors. Perfect, Lena said quietly. Through the door, she could hear Adrian's voice, amplified by the microphone, confident and polished. An honor to introduce tonight's keynote speaker, a leader in corporate law whose insights have shaped the industry for decades. Please join me in welcoming... The crowd applauded. Adrian was basking in it, Lena knew, standing at that podium like he owned the room. She could picture him exactly. The perfect suit, the perfect smile, the absolute certainty that this night belonged to him. Catherine touched her arm gently. 2 minutes. I'm going up to the stage now. When you hear your name, the doors will open and you'll walk straight down the center aisle. The spotlight will find you. Lena nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Her heart was racing now, adrenaline singing through her veins. This was it. The moment everything changed. She positioned herself behind the closed doors, listening to the keynote speaker's opening remarks. The polite attention of the crowd. Then Catherine's voice, clear and commanding. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for a moment. Before we continue with dinner, the Whitmore Foundation has an important announcement to share. The room quieted. Lena could feel the shift in energy, the curiosity building. This year, we've been privileged to partner with an extraordinary organization, Catherine continued. Yes. A company whose commitment to innovation and social responsibility embodies everything our foundation stands for. Many of you have seen the news today about Veil Innovations and the revelation of their CEO's identity. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone said something about the tech company, the mysterious founder. What you may not know, Catherine said, her voice warming with genuine enthusiasm, is that Veil Innovations has not only been our largest sponsor in the foundation's history, Their CEO has a personal connection to our community that makes this partnership especially meaningful. Lena could almost hear Adrian's brain working, trying to make the connections, still not understanding. "It is my great honor," Catherine said, "to introduce the woman whose vision and generosity have made tonight possible. Please stand and join me in welcoming the founder and CEO of Vale Innovations, Lena Vale." The doors swung open. Lena stepped through into a wall of sound, gasps, exclamations, the scraping of chairs as hundreds of people rose to their feet. The spotlight found her immediately, bright and unwavering, and she walked down the center aisle with her head high and her shoulders back, every step deliberate and powerful. She could see faces turning toward her, expressions shifting from curiosity to recognition to shock. She could see Adrian at a table near the front, frozen halfway out of his chair, his face draining of color as his brain tried to process what his eyes were seeing. And seated next to him, wearing a dress that was trying too hard to be sophisticated, was Sloane Kerr, the woman who'd taken Lena's place on the guest list, the mistress who'd thought she was stepping into a position of power. Sloane's face went pale, then red, then pale again. But Lena didn't focus on either of them. She kept her eyes forward, walking toward the stage where Catherine waited with outstretched hands and a smile that said she was enjoying this reveal every bit as much as Lena was. The applause built as Lena walked, not polite charity gala applause, but genuine, thunderous recognition. These people had read the news today. They knew what Vale Innovations represented. They understood they were watching someone significant step into the public eye. Lena reached the stage, and Catherine embraced her warmly before stepping aside to let Lena approach the microphone. The room was still standing. Hundreds of Manhattan's elite, on their feet, applauding a woman most of them had probably seen at firm events and charity dinners without ever really seeing at all. Lena let the applause continue for a moment, using the time to scan the room to mark the faces she recognized. Partners from Adrian's firm, looking stunned, clients she'd met at cocktail parties, their expressions shifting from confusion to understanding. And there, at that table near the front, Adrian and Sloane, both frozen in place like someone had hit pause on their entire world. Finally, Lena raised her hand gently, and the room quieted, everyone settling back into their seats. The silence was expectant, electric. "Thank you," Lena said, her voice steady and clear. "And thank you to Catherine and the entire Whitmore Foundation team for this incredible honor." She paused, letting her eyes travel across the room once more. Many of you are probably wondering how someone builds a company like Vale Innovations in complete privacy. The answer is simple. You build it in the spaces people don't think to look. You build it in the hours between social obligations and public appearances. You build it in the quiet moments when people assume you're doing something decorative and irrelevant. A few people laughed, but it was uncertain laughter. They weren't sure yet where this was going. "For the past 4 years," Lena continued, "I've had the privilege of working with an extraordinary team to create technology that matters. We've developed security protocols that protect billions of dollars in corporate assets. We've created AI systems that make organizations more efficient and more human at the same time. And we've done it all while maintaining complete discretion about our leadership structure." She let that sink in for a moment. "Some of you may know me from other contexts. Some of you have probably met me at events just like this one, where I was introduced as someone's wife, someone's plus one, someone's accessory." Lena's voice didn't rise, didn't sharpen, but something in her tone made the room go absolutely still. "What I want you to understand is that those introductions were never the full story. They were never even close." At his table, Adrian looked like he might be sick. His face had gone from pale to gray, and his hands were gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles were white. "Tonight, I'm here to share some exciting news about Vale Innovations," Lena said, smoothly redirecting. "Next week, we'll be launching our new AI platform, a system that will fundamentally change how corporations handle sensitive data and strategic planning. We've already secured partnerships with 3 Fortune 100 companies, and we expect to announce at least a dozen more before the end of the quarter." She smiled, and it was genuine, warm. "But more than that, I'm here tonight because the Whitmore Foundation represents something I believe in deeply. The idea that opportunity shouldn't be limited by circumstances, that talent and vision can come from anywhere, including places people don't expect, including people others might have overlooked. The applause started again, building gradually this time, people understanding now what they were witnessing. This wasn't just a CEO making a corporate announcement. This was a statement, a declaration, a woman claiming space she'd always occupied but had never been recognized for. Lena waited for the applause to fade, then continued. In that spirit, Vale Innovations is establishing a scholarship fund in partnership with the Whitmore Foundation. We'll be providing full 4-year scholarships to 20 students annually, students who might otherwise be overlooked, underestimated, or told they don't belong in spaces like this. Catherine's face lit up. This was clearly news to her, something Lena and Marcus had finalized just yesterday. Because the truth is, Lena said quietly, the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to stay invisible just because someone else finds it convenient. The most radical act is existing fully, taking up space, and building something real in a world that tells you you're not capable. She paused, her eyes finding Adrian's across the room. He was staring at her like she was a stranger, like he'd never seen her before in his life. "Thank you again for this recognition," Lena said. "And thank you for being part of an evening that means more to me than you can possibly know." The applause was deafening this time, people on their feet again, not because protocol demanded it, but because they genuinely wanted to. The energy in the room had shifted completely. What started as a standard charity gala had transformed into something else entirely. Lena descended from the stage and immediately people surrounded her. Tech industry leaders wanting to introduce themselves, foundation board members offering congratulations, journalists trying to get quotes. She moved through the crowd with practiced grace, shaking hands, accepting compliments, all while keeping track of Adrian in her peripheral vision. He was still at his table, shell-shocked, while Sloane gripped his arm and said something urgent in his ear. He shook his head, his lips moving, probably saying something like, "I had no idea," or "How is this possible?" Catherine appeared at Lena's side, gently extracting her from a particularly enthusiastic tech blogger. "You're magnificent," she said quietly. "And that scholarship announcement, Lena, that's transformational." "It's the right thing to do," Lena said simply. "There are about 24 people who want to talk to you, but I'm guessing there's one conversation you need to have first." Catherine's eyes flicked toward Adrian's table. "Would you like me to run interference, or would you prefer to handle it yourself?" "I'll handle it," Lena said, "but thank you." She made her way through the crowd, accepting congratulations and postponing conversations with promises to connect later. People parted for her naturally, creating a path that led directly to the table where Adrian sat with Sloane and 2 other couples from his firm. As Lena approached, Sloane's face went through another complicated series of expressions: fear, embarrassment, defiance, calculation. Adrian just looked numb. "Adrian," Lena said pleasantly, "I hope you're enjoying the evening." He stood slowly, mechanically, like his body was moving without his brain's full participation. "Lena, I don't understand." "Don't you?" Lena tilted her head slightly, genuinely curious. "I thought I was very clear in my speech. Vale Innovations is my company. I founded it 4 years ago. I've been the CEO this entire time." "But you didn't say." Adrian was struggling to form complete sentences. The other people at the table were watching with undisguised fascination. "I didn't say," Lena agreed. "That's true. I built an entire company, established partnerships with Fortune 100 corporations, developed technology that's about to transform an industry, and I did all of it without once asking for your input or permission. Interesting, isn't it?" Sloane made a small sound, something between a gasp and a laugh. Adrian shot her a look that could have melted steel. "I think we should talk," Adrian said tightly. "Privately." "I don't think so," Lena said easily. "I have quite a few conversations to have tonight, and you're not at the top of my list. But since you brought up talking, there is something I wanted to mention." She turned to Sloane with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Ms. Kerr, I believe you're in the wrong section. This table is reserved for firm partners and their spouses. As a junior associate, you should be seated," Lena gestured vaguely toward the back of the room, "somewhere more appropriate to your position." The words landed like ice water. Sloane's face went scarlet, and around them people were definitely listening now, heads turning to catch the exchange. "Lena," Adrian started, his voice low and urgent, "please don't do this here." Do what? Lena asked innocently. I'm simply pointing out that the seating arrangement seemed confused. Ms. Kerr is listed on the guest roster in the space that was originally reserved for me. I'm sure it was just an administrative error. She watched Sloane's face cycle through humiliation and rage, watched Adrian realize that there was no way to navigate this that didn't make him look either weak or cruel. I should go, Sloane said suddenly, standing so quickly her chair scraped against the floor. This was clearly a mistake. She grabbed her clutch and walked away, her heels clicking against the marble floor in sharp, angry beats. Adrian watched her go, then turned back to Lena with something desperate in his eyes. We need to talk about this, he said again. About everything. About your company, about tonight, about how you told the foundation I was too sick to attend? Lena asked quietly. Or about how you removed my name from the guest list without telling me? Or perhaps about how you've spent the past 8 months sleeping with your colleague while I built something that makes your biggest case look like a parking ticket? Adrian's face went from gray to white. No, Adrian said. And his voice cracked. No, Adrian said, and his voice cracked on the words. Lena, I swear, I had no idea you were... I thought you were just what? Lena kept her voice level, almost gentle. Just your wife? Just someone who didn't matter? Just a woman who was easy and understanding and completely beneath your notice? That's not fair, Adrian said, but there was no conviction behind the words. You're right, Lena agreed. It's not fair. It wasn't fair that you treated our marriage like a convenience. It wasn't fair that you made decisions about my life without consulting me. It wasn't fair that you assumed I was too naive and too irrelevant to notice what you were doing. But we're well past fair now, Adrian. We're into consequences. She turned to leave, then paused and looked back at him one more time. Enjoy the rest of the gala, she said. I have a feeling it's going to be a very long night for you. People stepping aside to let her pass, people stepping aside to let her pass while their eyes tracked every movement. She could feel the shift in the room's energy. What had been curiosity was rapidly becoming speculation, the kind of social calculus that happened at events like this when someone's status changed in real time. A server appeared at her elbow with champagne. Lena accepted the glass with a quiet thank you and took a sip, letting the cold bubbles ground her. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was even. She'd just detonated a bomb in the middle of Adrian's world, and she felt clearer and calmer than she had in years. That was extraordinary. The voice came from her left, a woman in her 60s wearing emeralds that probably cost more than most cars. I'm Victoria Whitmore. I founded this organization 40 years ago, and I have to say, I've never seen anything quite like what just happened. Lena turned to face her, recognizing the name immediately. Victoria Whitmore was a legend in Manhattan philanthropy, the kind of woman who wrote checks that funded entire hospital wings and scholarship programs. Ms. Whitmore, Lena said, it's an honor. Please, call me Victoria, and the honor is entirely mine. Victoria's eyes were sharp and assessing, but there was warmth there too. I've been watching your husband work this room for the past hour. Very ambitious young man, very confident. It was quite something to see that confidence evaporate in real time. I imagine it was, Lena said carefully. Good. Victoria's smile was fierce. Men like that need to understand that the world doesn't revolve around their ambitions. My late husband was similar, brilliant lawyer, terrible at seeing the people right in front of him. It took me leaving him for 6 months before he finally understood that I was a person, not a possession. You went back to him? Lena asked. I did. He changed, genuinely changed, and we had 30 good years after that. Victoria paused, studying Lena's face. But I can see in your eyes that you're not going back. You've already left, haven't you? Even if you're still technically married. Yes, Lena said simply. I left a long time ago. Tonight was just making it official. Victoria nodded approvingly. Then let me give you some advice from someone who's navigated these waters before. In about 10 minutes, your husband is going to try to approach you again. He'll have had time to process, to strategize, to figure out his next move. He'll probably try to convince you to leave with him, to have this conversation privately, to give him a chance to explain. I won't go, Lena said. I know you won't, but others will be watching. The firm partners, the foundation board, everyone who matters in this room. How you handle the next hour will set the tone for how people see you going forward, as a woman who made a scene or as a CEO who commanded a room. Victoria's voice was kind but firm. You've already won, Lena. Now you need to show them that winning looks like grace. Before Lena could respond, a man in an expensive suit approached with the kind of confidence that came from old money and older connections. Ms. Vale, he said, extending his hand. Richard Pemberton. I'm the managing partner at Whitmore and Associates. Adrian's boss, the man whose approval Adrian had been chasing for years. Lena shook his hand. Mr. Pemberton, lovely to meet you. I have to admit tonight has been full of surprises. Pemberton's tone was carefully neutral. I've known Adrian Cross for 5 years. He's mentioned his wife, of course, but he somehow failed to mention that she was building one of the most impressive tech companies in the industry. I prefer to keep my professional and personal lives separate, Lena said smoothly. Clearly, Pemberton studied her with the kind of attention lawyers gave to witnesses they were about to cross-examine. I'm curious, Ms. Vale. Did your husband know about Vale Innovations before tonight? It was a loaded question. Lena could feel Victoria watching the exchange, along with at least a dozen other people in immediate earshot. Adrian knew I worked in technology, Lena said carefully. Beyond that, we maintained separate professional spheres. I'm sure you can understand the value of discretion in certain business contexts. It was a masterful non-answer, and Pemberton's slight smile suggested he recognized it as such. Indeed. Well, I hope you'll consider Whitmore and Associates if you ever need legal representation. We have an excellent corporate practice. I'll keep that in mind, Lena said, though I should mention that Vale Innovations already has established legal counsel. Of course you do. Pemberton nodded, his eyes flicking briefly toward where Adrian still stood, looking lost. Enjoy your evening, Ms. Vale, and congratulations on your success. It's clearly well-deserved. As Pemberton walked away, Victoria leaned in slightly. That was well done. You didn't throw your husband under the bus, but you didn't protect him either. Pemberton will draw his own conclusions, and trust me, they won't be favorable to Adrian. I wasn't trying to damage his career, Lena said quietly. I know you weren't. That's what makes this so perfect. You're simply existing in your full power, and the natural consequence is that his carefully built house of cards is collapsing. Victoria squeezed Lena's arm gently. Stay strong. The hard part is almost over. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Over the next 30 minutes, Lena found herself in conversation after conversation. Tech executives wanting to discuss potential partnerships, foundation board members gushing about the scholarship program, journalists angling for exclusive interviews. She handled each interaction with calm professionalism, aware that every word she said tonight would be dissected and analyzed. And through it all, she could feel Adrian watching her from across the room. He'd moved from his table to the bar, nursing what looked like whiskey, his face a mask of controlled devastation. Sloane had disappeared entirely, probably fled to the bathroom or left the event altogether. At 8:45, Catherine appeared at Lena's side with an apologetic smile. I hate to interrupt, but there's someone I'd like you to meet. David Chen. He runs the technology committee for the foundation. He has some ideas about expanding the scholarship program into STEM education. I'd love to talk with him, Lena said, grateful for Catherine's intervention. The conversation with David Chen was genuinely interesting. He had a background in computer science and understood the challenges facing underrepresented students in tech fields. They talked about curriculum development, mentorship programs, the importance of early exposure to coding. It was exactly the kind of conversation Lena loved, the kind that made her remember why she'd built Vale Innovations in the first place. Not for the money or the status, but for the opportunity to make a real difference in how technology shaped the world. When David excused himself to take a phone call, Lena found herself momentarily alone in a quiet corner of the ballroom. She was checking her phone, messages from Marcus asking how it was going, notifications about the evening's social media coverage, when a shadow fell across her. Lena. Adrian's voice was rough, strained. She looked up to find him standing closer than she'd expected, his face drawn and pale under the ballroom's elegant lighting. Adrian, she said evenly, you should probably return to your table. Dinner service isn't finished. I don't care about dinner. He ran his hand through his hair, destroying the careful styling. I need to talk to you. Really talk to you, please. Lena glanced around. People were watching, trying to look like they weren't watching. This was the moment Victoria had warned her about. "I don't think there's anything to discuss," she said quietly. "How can you say that?" "Lena, you've been running a company for 4 years." 4 years. How did I not know? How did we live in the same house and I never... He stopped, seeming to realize that finishing that sentence wouldn't help his case. "You never asked," Lena said simply. "You never wondered what I did with my time. You never looked closely enough to see anything beyond what you'd already decided I was." "That's not fair," Adrian said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I thought you were happy. I thought we were happy." "You thought I was convenient," Lena corrected gently. "There's a difference." Adrian flinched. "Is this about Sloane? Because that's complicated, but it's not... This has nothing to do with Sloane Kerr." Lena's voice was calm but firm. "This is about the fact that you removed my name from tonight's guest list and told the foundation I was too sick to attend. This is about you making decisions about my life without consulting me. This is about 6 years of being treated like an accessory instead of a partner." "I can change," Adrian said desperately. "Lena, I know I haven't been the husband you deserved, but I can be better. We can work on this, counseling, therapy, whatever you need." "I don't need anything from you," Lena said. "That's what you're not understanding. I built an entire life without you noticing. I created something real and valuable and completely independent of anything you provided. I don't need you to change. I don't need you at all." The words hung between them, brutal in their simplicity. Adrian looked like she'd physically struck him. "You don't mean that," he said weakly. "I do." Lena met his eyes directly. "I've meant it for a long time. I just hadn't said it out loud yet." "So that's it?" Adrian's voice was rising slightly, drawing more attention. "You're just going to throw away 6 years of marriage? Everything we built together?" "We didn't build anything together, Adrian. You built a career. I built a company. We just happened to share an address." Lena paused, then added more gently, "You should speak with a lawyer on Monday. Not someone from your firm. That would be a conflict of interest. But someone good. I'll do the same. We can handle this professionally." "You've already thought about this," Adrian said, and there was something like awe in his voice. "You've been planning this. The company, tonight, all of it? This was your exit strategy." "Yes," Lena said simply. "It was." Before Adrian could respond, Pemberton appeared beside them with the impeccable timing of someone who'd been watching and waiting for the right moment to intervene. "Adrian," he said pleasantly, "could I have a word? In private?" It wasn't really a request. Adrian looked at Lena, then at Pemberton, then back at Lena with something desperate in his eyes. "This conversation isn't over," he said. "Yes," Lena replied quietly. "It is." She watched Pemberton guide Adrian away, noting the firm hand on his shoulder, the way Adrian's posture slumped as they walked toward a private corridor. She felt a brief flicker of something that might have been pity, but it passed quickly. Adrian had made his choices. Now he was living with the consequences. Victoria materialized at her side again, appearing from the crowd like a particularly elegant guardian angel. "Richard Pemberton is going to tell your husband that his behavior tonight has been noticed and discussed, that his personal life has become a professional liability, that perhaps he should consider taking some time off to sort things out." "How do you know that?" Lena asked. "Because I suggested it to Richard about 10 minutes ago." Victoria's smile was sharp. "The foundation can't be associated with messy personal scandals, especially not when they involve lying about a spouse's health to manipulate guest lists. Richard is pragmatic. He'll do what's best for the firm." "Adrian will think I orchestrated this," Lena said. "Good. Let him think that. Let him understand that actions have consequences, and that the woman he underestimated is capable of protecting herself." Victoria paused. "Though for the record, you didn't orchestrate anything. You simply existed authentically, and everything else followed naturally." Catherine joined them, her face bright with excitement. "Lena, I have someone else who's dying to meet you, Margaret Thornton from the Times. She's doing a profile on women in tech, and she'd love to include you." "That would be wonderful," Lena said, grateful for the distraction. The next hour passed in a blur of conversations and introductions. Lena talked with Margaret Thornton about the challenges of building a company in stealth mode, about the importance of privacy in the early stages of development, about her vision for Vale Innovation's future. She carefully avoided discussing her marriage, redirecting questions about her personal life back to the company and the scholarship program. Through it all, Adrian remained absent. Pemberton had clearly pulled him aside for a serious conversation, the kind that would reshape both their professional relationship and Adrian's understanding of his position at the firm. Around 10 p.m., as the formal program concluded and people began drifting toward the after-party, Lena's phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. The message included a link to a breaking news story. Vale Innovations CEO revealed at Manhattan Gala, tech industry stunned by secret success story. Below that, another message. You're everywhere. Every major outlet is running the story. Stock futures for your partner companies are up. 3 more Fortune 500 companies have reached out about partnerships. Boss, you just became one of the most famous CEOs in America. Lena read the message twice, letting the reality sink in. 4 years of work, 4 years of building something real in the shadows, and now it was all public. The company she'd protected so carefully was now the subject of national attention. Her phone rang. Unknown number, but the area code was Silicon Valley. Lena Vale, she answered. Ms. Vale, this is James Morrison from Tech Ventures Capital. I apologize for calling so late, but I've been trying to reach you all evening. I watched your speech online, and I have to tell you, what you've built with Vale Innovations is extraordinary. I'd love to discuss potential investment opportunities when you have time. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. I appreciate your interest, but Vale Innovations isn't currently seeking investment. We're privately funded and prefer to maintain that structure. There was a pause. I see. Well, if that changes, I hope you'll keep us in mind. And Ms. Vale, what you did tonight, stepping into the spotlight like that, it's going to inspire a lot of people. After they hung up, Lena stood very still, processing the conversation. This was her life now. Phone calls from venture capitalists, press inquiries, public recognition. Everything she'd built in private was now under scrutiny, subject to analysis and speculation and judgment. For a moment, she felt the weight of it, the responsibility, the exposure, the impossibility of ever returning to anonymity. Then she remembered Adrian's face when she'd walked into the ballroom, remembered the standing ovation, remembered Victoria's fierce approval and Catherine's genuine excitement and the way people had looked at her with respect instead of dismissal. The weight shifted, transformed into something else. Not burden, but power. Not exposure, but visibility. Not vulnerability, but strength. She could do this. She'd already done the hard part. Catherine found her again as the crowd was thinning. The after-party is starting at the plaza. You're certainly welcome to attend, though I understand if you'd prefer to call it a night. You've already made the impression of a lifetime. Lena considered this. The after-party would be more casual, more intimate. The kind of event where real connections were made, where business was discussed without the formal structure of the gala. It was exactly the kind of networking opportunity that could benefit Vale Innovations. But it was also where Adrian would be, probably drowning his humiliation in expensive scotch, possibly confronting her again with whatever strategy he'd developed during his conversation with Pemberton. I think I'll attend, Lena said, at least for a little while. Excellent. I'll make sure you're on the VIP list. Catherine hesitated, then added quietly, Lena, I just want you to know. What you did tonight took incredible courage. I've been running this foundation for 12 years, and I've seen a lot of powerful people at these events. But I've never seen anyone command a room the way you did. You didn't just announce a company, you reclaimed your entire identity. Thank you, Lena said, and meant it. That's exactly what I was trying to do. The ride to the plaza took 15 minutes. Lena sat in the back of the car Catherine had arranged, watching the city lights blur past, checking her phone for updates. The news coverage was expanding by the minute. Tech blogs were dissecting Vale Innovations' business model. Business analysts were trying to value the company. Social media was exploding with reactions to her speech. And buried in the notifications was a text from an unknown number. This is Sloan. We need to talk. Call me. Lena deleted it without responding. Whatever Sloan wanted to say, whether it was an apology, a threat, or an attempt at explanation, Lena had no interest in hearing it. Sloan was Adrian's problem now, just as Adrian was Sloan's. The after-party was already in full swing when Lena arrived. The plaza's ballroom had been transformed into something more intimate than the gala. Softer lighting, jazz music, smaller clusters of people having intense conversations. This was where the real power players came to talk without the performance of the formal event. Lena accepted another glass of champagne and moved through the room, conscious of the attention she was attracting. People wanted to talk to her, wanted to be seen talking to her. She was suddenly someone who mattered, someone whose approval and attention had value. It was intoxicating and exhausting in equal measure. She was talking with a group of Foundation board members about the scholarship program when she felt someone's eyes on her. She turned to find Adrian standing near the bar, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not angry, not desperate. Something closer to resignation. Their eyes met across the room. For a moment, Lena saw a flash of the man she'd married 6 years ago, before the dismissiveness, before the affairs, before the slow erosion of everything that might have been good between them. Then Pemberton appeared at Adrian's shoulder, said something quiet, and Adrian's attention shifted. He nodded, set down his drink, and followed Pemberton toward the exit. Victoria appeared at Lena's side. Richard is sending him home. Suggested very strongly that Adrian take the rest of the week off, work from home, keep a low profile until this blows over. Will it blow over? Lena asked. For the firm? Probably. For your husband? Victoria shrugged elegantly. That depends entirely on what he does next. If he's smart, he'll recognize that his marriage is over, handle the divorce professionally, and rebuild his career from a position of humility. If he's not smart, he'll try to fight you, and that will only make everything worse. I hope he's smart, Lena said quietly. Do you? Victoria studied her face. Or do you hope he gives you a reason to destroy him completely? Lena was quiet for a moment, examining her own heart. I don't want to destroy him. I just want to be free of him. Then you're a better person than I was at your age, Victoria said. When my husband underestimated me, I wanted to burn his world to the ground. I'm glad you're taking the higher road. Around midnight, Lena decided she'd had enough. She'd made her appearance, had the necessary conversations, established her presence in this new social sphere. Now she was ready to go home, except the penthouse didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like Adrian's space, Adrian's world, Adrian's life that she'd been occupying like a ghost. She pulled out her phone and texted Marcus. Can you book me a suite at the Greenwich? I'll be staying there for the foreseeable future. The response came immediately. Already done. Checked you in 2 hours ago. Figured you wouldn't want to go back to the penthouse tonight. Lena smiled. Marcus knew her too well. She said her goodbyes to Catherine and Victoria, promised to be in touch about the scholarship program details, and slipped out of the after-party into the cool November night. The car that had brought her was still waiting, and the driver had her new destination before she even asked. The Greenwich Hotel was exactly what she needed. Elegant, private, the kind of place where celebrities and CEOs went to escape public attention. The suite Marcus had booked was on the top floor, all clean lines and comfortable luxury, with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city. Lena stood at those windows for a long time, still wearing the midnight blue dress, watching Manhattan glitter below her. Somewhere out there, Adrian was probably returning to their penthouse, walking into rooms that would feel emptier now that he understood who'd actually been occupying them. Somewhere out there, Sloane was probably processing her own humiliation, understanding that her attempt to step into Lena's role had backfired spectacularly. And here, in this quiet suite high above the city, Lena stood in the wreckage of her old life and felt nothing but relief. Her phone buzzed, a message from Catherine. The Foundation Board just voted unanimously to increase the scholarship fund budget by 40%. They want to match your vision. Thank you for tonight, Lena. You changed everything. Another message, this time from Marcus. 15 interview requests so far. Forbes, Fortune, TechCrunch, WSJ. How do you want to handle it? And finally, a message from a number she recognized as Victoria's. You were magnificent tonight. Call me next week. I have some ideas about expanding your board of directors. You'll need advisors who understand both the tech world and Manhattan society. Welcome to your new life, dear. Lena read each message carefully, then set her phone down and returned to the window. Tomorrow, she would start fielding those interview requests. She would work with Catherine on the scholarship program expansion. She would take Victoria's call about board advisors. She would handle whatever legal complications arose from the inevitable divorce. But tonight, she just stood in the silence and let herself feel the magnitude of what had happened. She'd walked into that ballroom as nobody, or as somebody's wife, which in many ways was the same thing. She'd walked out as a CEO, a philanthropist, a woman who commanded respect on her own terms. And Adrian, who'd spent 6 years treating her like she was invisible, had been forced to watch every second of her transformation. The irony was almost poetic. Lena kicked off her heels, felt the plush carpet under her feet, and allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. The midnight blue dress had done its job. The speech had landed exactly as intended. The reveal had been perfect. Now came the harder part, building a life that matched the power she'd finally claimed. But after 4 years of building a company in secret while maintaining the facade of being Adrian's quiet, unambitious wife, Lena figured she could handle anything. She changed into the hotel robe, washed off the evening's makeup, and climbed into bed with her laptop. Sleep could wait. Right now, she wanted to read every article, every analysis, every reaction to tonight's revelation. She wanted to see herself through the world's eyes, not as Adrian Cross's wife, but as Lena Vale, CEO and founder, a woman who'd refused to stay invisible just because someone else found it convenient. And as she read, as the night deepened and the city quieted below her, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in 6 years of marriage. She felt like herself. Morning came too early and too bright. Lena woke to sunlight streaming through the Greenwich's floor-to-ceiling windows and the insistent buzz of her phone vibrating against the nightstand. She reached for it with eyes still half closed, then jolted fully awake when she saw the screen. 47 missed calls, 163 text messages. Her email inbox showed over 300 unread messages, and that was just since midnight. The world had woken up to the story of Vale Innovations and its secret CEO, and everyone wanted a piece of it. Lena sat up, pulling the hotel robe tighter around herself, and started scrolling through the messages. Most were from journalists, investors, tech industry contacts she'd worked with anonymously who were now putting the pieces together. But buried in the flood was a message from Adrian, time-stamped at 3:17 a.m. "We need to talk about next steps. I've contacted David Morrison at Morrison & Associates for legal counsel. I assume you'll want separate representation. Can we please handle this like adults?" Lena stared at the message for a long moment, analyzing the language. Not, "I'm sorry," not, "I was wrong." Just a business-like request to handle the dissolution of their marriage with professional efficiency. It was so perfectly Adrian. Even in the wreckage of everything, he couldn't quite bring himself to acknowledge the deeper failures. She typed back, "I'll have my attorney contact yours. Please arrange to have some of my things sent to the Greenwich Hotel. I'll send a list by end of day." She hit send before she could second-guess the message, then immediately opened a new text to Marcus. "I need a divorce attorney, someone who specializes in high-net-worth cases and won't be intimidated by Whitmore and Associates. Recommendations?" Marcus responded within minutes. "Already on it. Called in a favor last night. Jessica Caldwell from Caldwell and Ross. She's a shark, completely discreet, and she's handled bigger cases than this. She can meet you this afternoon if you're available." "Perfect. Set it up." Lena got up and ordered breakfast from room service, then stood at the windows with her coffee, looking out at the city that had transformed overnight from Adrian's territory into something else entirely. She'd spent 6 years navigating Manhattan as Mrs. Cross, as someone's wife, always aware of how her presence reflected on Adrian's career. Now she was just Lena Vale, and the city felt different, bigger, more hers. Her phone rang. Catherine Mills. "Lena, I hope I'm not calling too early. I've been fielding calls all morning from board members, donors, people who attended last night. Everyone is talking about you." "I imagine they are," Lena said carefully. "It's all positive, I promise. Well, mostly positive. There are some people who are uncomfortable with how public the revelation was. But they're in the minority." Catherine paused. "I wanted to give you a heads up about something. The Times is running a profile tomorrow, front page of the business section. They're calling it The CEO Who Built an Empire in the Shadows. The reporter who wrote it was at the Gala last night." Lena's stomach tightened slightly. "Did they reach out to you for comment?" "They did. I told them about the scholarship program, about your commitment to the Foundation's mission. I kept it professional." Another pause. "They also reached out to Whitmore and Associates. Richard Pemberton declined to comment, but apparently several other people at the firm were willing to talk. Let me guess, Lena said. Anonymous sources discussing the complicated dynamics of my marriage. Something like that. Lena, I'm not trying to worry you. I just wanted you to be prepared. The story is going to paint a picture of a woman who succeeded despite being underestimated by her husband. It's not a flattering portrait of Adrian. I didn't ask for that, Lena said quietly. I know you didn't, but the narrative writes itself, doesn't it? Brilliant woman builds tech empire while her lawyer husband dismisses her work. It's the kind of story people want to read. Catherine's voice softened. How are you doing? Really? Lena considered the question honestly. I'm overwhelmed, relieved, a little scared, mostly just trying to keep moving forward. That's all you can do. And Lena? You have friends now, real ones, people who see you for who you actually are. Don't forget that. After they hung up, Lena spent the next hour responding to the most urgent messages and delegating the rest to Marcus. He was in his element, managing the media storm with the kind of strategic precision that made him invaluable. By noon, he'd coordinated responses to the top-tier press inquiries, scheduled 3 major interviews for the following week, and drafted a company statement about Vale Innovation's future plans. The meeting with Jessica Caldwell was scheduled for 3 p.m. at her offices in Midtown. Lena spent the time between calls getting herself together, a shower, careful attention to hair and makeup, a navy suit that projected authority without trying too hard. She was learning to dress for her actual life now, not the ghost life she'd been living. Caldwell and Ross occupied the 42nd floor of a glass tower on 6th Avenue. The reception area was all modern art and leather furniture, the kind of space designed to make wealthy clients feel like their money was being well spent. Jessica Caldwell herself was in her late 40s, with silver-streaked hair pulled into an elegant knot and eyes that missed nothing. Ms. Vale, she said, extending her hand. Thank you for coming. I've been following your story since last night, quite the reveal. Thank you for seeing me on such short notice, Lena said. They settled into Jessica's office, which had the same sleek aesthetic as the reception area, but with personal touches. Framed photographs of what looked like family, a small collection of abstract sculptures, shelves lined with legal texts and what appeared to be first edition novels. Let me start by saying that I understand this is difficult, Jessica began. Divorce is always complicated, and high-profile divorces are exponentially more so. From what Marcus told me, your situation involves significant assets on your side and potential reputation concerns on your husband's side. That's accurate, Lena said. Good. Then let's talk strategy. New York is an equitable distribution state, which means marital property gets divided fairly, but not necessarily equally. The key question is, what assets did you bring into the marriage versus what was accumulated during the marriage? Lena pulled out her tablet, which contained documentation Marcus had helped her prepare. I founded Vale Innovations 4 years into the marriage, but I funded it entirely with my own savings and a small inheritance from my grandmother. Adrian never contributed financially, and he wasn't aware of the company's existence until last night. Jessica's eyebrows rose slightly. You kept a multi-million-dollar company completely secret from your spouse for 4 years? Yes. That's impressive, and potentially complicated from a legal standpoint. Jessica leaned forward. Walk me through the timeline. When did you start the company? How did you fund it? What role, if any, did your husband play in supporting your work? Lena spent the next hour detailing everything. The initial concept for Vale Innovations, the careful separation of finances, the deliberate compartmentalization of her professional and personal lives. Jessica took notes, asked pointed questions, and occasionally made small sounds of approval or concern. The good news, Jessica said finally, is that you have excellent documentation. The company is clearly yours, founded with separate funds, maintained independently, no commingling of assets. The challenging news is that Adrian's attorney will likely argue that he supported you emotionally and practically during the marriage, enabling you to build the company. He'll claim he's entitled to a portion of its value. He didn't support me, Lena said flatly. He didn't even know what I was doing. I believe you. But in court, perception matters. His attorney will paint a picture of a husband who provided stability and a comfortable home environment that allowed you to focus on your work. Jessica paused. However, we have several advantages. First, the company's documentation is airtight. Second, the public narrative already positions you as someone who succeeded despite being underestimated. Third, your husband's affair with a colleague from his firm is going to be very difficult for him to explain away. I don't want to use that against him, Lena said. I just want a clean break. Admirable. But Lena, you need to understand Adrian's attorney won't show you the same courtesy. They'll try to position you as secretive, manipulative, potentially deceptive. They'll argue that hiding assets from a spouse is grounds for a less favorable settlement. I didn't hide assets. I built something separate. I know. And we'll make that distinction very clear. Jessica's expression softened slightly. Here's what I recommend. We file first, establishing the narrative on our terms. We propose a fair but firm settlement. You keep Vail Innovations and all associated assets. He keeps his partnership track and any separate property, and you split any truly joint assets equitably. We make it generous enough that fighting it would cost him more in legal fees and reputation damage than accepting it. What about the penthouse? Lena asked. Who purchased it? It's in both our names, but Adrian's family made the down payment as a wedding gift. Jessica nodded. Then we offer to let him keep it or sell it with proceeds split proportionally to the initial investment. You're not trying to take his home away. You're just claiming what's rightfully yours. They spent another hour working through details, discussing timelines and potential complications. By the time Lena left Caldwell and Ross, she had a clear strategy and the beginning of peace about what came next. Walking back to the Greenwich through the late afternoon crowds, Lena felt the strangeness of her new reality settling over her. People passed her on the street without recognition. She wasn't famous in the celebrity sense, not yet anyway. But in the circles that mattered to her, she was suddenly someone people wanted to know. Her phone buzzed. Victoria Whitmore. Lena, dear, I hope you're surviving the aftermath. I wanted to invite you to a small dinner party next Wednesday. Very intimate, just 8 people, all women who run major organizations or foundations. I think you'd find the conversation valuable. That sounds wonderful, Lena said. Thank you for thinking of me. Of course, you're one of us now, whether you intended to be or not. Victoria's voice carried warmth, but also something more serious. I also wanted to warn you, there's going to be blowback. Not from everyone, but from certain circles. Men who feel threatened by what you represent. Women who stayed quiet in difficult marriages and resent that you didn't. You need to be prepared for that. I am, Lena said, or at least I'm trying to be. Good. Stay strong, and remember, you have allies now. Use them. Back at the Greenwich, Lena found her suite had been refreshed. Fresh flowers on the table, the bed made with crisp white linens, a bottle of champagne on ice, with a note from the hotel manager congratulating her on her success. It was surreal, this sudden transformation from invisible wife to celebrated CEO. She changed into comfortable clothes and opened her laptop, ready to work through the backlog of emails that had accumulated during her meeting with Jessica. Most were congratulatory messages from tech industry contacts, partnership inquiries, interview requests. But one stood out, an email from an address she didn't recognize, with the subject line, "From someone who understands." Lena opened it cautiously. Ms. Vail, you don't know me, but I attended the gala last night and watched your revelation with great interest. I'm writing because I want you to know that what you did took tremendous courage, and it's going to inspire more people than you realize. I spent 15 years in a marriage where my accomplishments were minimized and my ambitions were treated as hobbies. When I finally left, people told me I was throwing away a good life. But I wasn't. I was claiming my actual life. Thank you for showing other women that it's possible to build something real, even when the people closest to you refuse to see it. With admiration, Patricia Morrison. Lena read the email 3 times, feeling something warm and unexpected bloom in her chest. She hadn't thought about the broader impact of her story, had been so focused on her own liberation that she hadn't considered how it might resonate with others in similar situations. She typed a careful response. Patricia, thank you for your message. It means more than you know. I hope you're thriving in the life you built for yourself. Best, Lena. Over the next few hours, more emails like Patricia's arrived. Women sharing their stories, thanking Lena for being visible, for showing that it was possible to reclaim power that had been slowly eroded over years of subtle dismissal. Some were still in difficult marriages, trying to figure out their next steps. Others had already left and were rebuilding. All of them saw themselves in Lena's story. It was overwhelming and humbling and slightly terrifying all at once. Around 7 p.m., Marcus called. "Boss, I need to give you a heads up about something. Adrian's firm just released a statement." Lena's stomach tightened. "What kind of statement?" "Professional and carefully worded, but basically saying that Adrian Cross is taking a temporary leave of absence to address personal matters. They're spinning it as him being a dedicated family man who wants to focus on his marriage." Marcus paused. "It's bullshit, obviously. Pemberton is pushing him out quietly, giving him a face-saving exit before the scandal gets worse." "Is there more scandal coming?" Lena asked. "There might be. I've been hearing rumors about Sloane Kerr. Apparently she's not handling the humiliation well. There's talk she might try to sell her story to the press, paint herself as the other woman who didn't know what she was getting into." Lena closed her eyes briefly. "Let her. I'm not interested in fighting that battle. She and Adrian deserve each other." "You're more gracious than I would be," Marcus said, "but I respect it. Oh, and one more thing. Forbes wants to put you on the cover of their next issue. The secret CEO who changed the game. They want to do a photo shoot next week." "Forbes?" Lena repeated, trying to process the magnitude of that. "Yeah, you're officially a big deal now, boss. How does it feel?" Lena looked around her hotel suite, at the city lights beginning to glow outside her windows, at the laptop full of messages from people she'd inspired without meaning to. "Surreal," she said honestly, "but also right. Like I'm finally living in the life I was supposed to have all along." "Good," Marcus said warmly. "You deserve every bit of this. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for claiming it." After they hung up, Lena ordered dinner from room service and tried to relax, but her mind kept spinning. The Forbes cover, the divorce proceedings, the scholarship program expansion, the product launch coming next week. Everything was happening so fast, the life she'd carefully built in secret suddenly exploding into public view. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from an unknown number, but the message made her heart stop. "Lena, this is Jennifer Cross, Adrian's mother. We need to talk." Lena stared at the message, a cold feeling settling in her stomach. She hadn't seen Adrian's mother in over a year. The Cross family had never been particularly warm to her, had always treated her like a pretty accessory Adrian had acquired rather than an actual person. Jennifer Cross was particularly difficult, the kind of society matron who valued appearances above everything else. Before Lena could decide whether to respond, her phone rang. Jennifer Cross calling. Lena considered letting it go to voicemail, then decided against it. Better to handle this directly. "Mrs. Cross," she answered. "Lena." Jennifer's voice was cool, controlled. "I've been trying to reach Adrian all day, but he's not answering. I thought perhaps you might be more willing to have a conversation." "That depends on what you want to talk about," Lena said carefully. "I want to talk about the spectacle you created last night. The humiliation you subjected my son to in front of Manhattan's most influential people." Jennifer's voice hardened. "Whatever problems exist in your marriage, they should have been handled privately, not turned into a public circus." Lena felt anger flash through her, sharp and clean. "Mrs. Cross, with respect, I didn't create a spectacle. I announced my company's sponsorship of a foundation event. The fact that your son was surprised by my success says more about him than it does about me. You deliberately blindsided him. You knew he would be there, knew he would be caught off guard." "I knew a lot of things," Lena interrupted. "I knew that Adrian removed my name from the guest list without telling me. I knew that he told the foundation I was too sick to attend. I knew that he brought his mistress to the event as his replacement date. So yes, Mrs. Cross, I knew he would be surprised. I just didn't particularly care." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Adrian made mistakes," Jennifer said finally. "I won't deny that, but he's my son, and I won't stand by while you destroy his reputation and his career." "I'm not destroying anything," Lena said quietly. "I'm simply existing in my full truth. If that's uncomfortable for Adrian, perhaps he should examine why. You're being unreasonable, vindictive. This isn't the woman Adrian married." "You're right," Lena said. "The woman Adrian married was willing to be invisible, willing to be dismissed and underestimated and treated like she didn't matter. I'm not that woman anymore. I haven't been for a long time. Then this is about revenge, Jennifer said coldly. You're punishing him for not seeing you the way you wanted to be seen. No, Lena said. This is about freedom. I'm not punishing Adrian. I'm just done pretending to be smaller than I am to make him comfortable. Jennifer made a sound that might have been frustration or disbelief. He's taking a leave of absence from the firm. Did you know that? He's being forced to step away from everything he's worked for because of what you did. He's taking a leave of absence because of choices he made, Lena corrected. Lying about my health, bringing his affair partner to a professional event. Those are his decisions, not mine. We could have worked through this as a family, Jennifer insisted. We could have found a way to manage the situation quietly. Instead, you turned it into a public scandal. There is no we, Mrs. Cross. There's me, living my life authentically, and there's Adrian, dealing with the consequences of his choices. Those are separate things. Lena paused, then added more gently, I'm sorry this is painful for you. I'm sure watching your son struggle is difficult, but I can't set myself on fire to keep him warm. Not anymore. Another long silence. Then Jennifer's voice, tight with emotion. You'll regret this. When the divorce gets messy, when the press starts picking apart your marriage, when you realize what you've given up, you'll regret burning these bridges. Maybe, Lena said, but I doubt it. She hung up before Jennifer could respond, then sat very still, processing the conversation. The Cross family would fight her. They would try to protect Adrian's reputation, try to paint Lena as the villain in this story. It was going to get uglier before it got better. But Lena had Jessica Caldwell, had Marcus, had Victoria and Catherine, and a growing network of people who saw her clearly and valued what she'd built. She had documentation, had the public narrative on her side, had the truth of her own experience. She would survive this. She would more than survive it. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Just got word that the Times profile is running tomorrow morning as planned. They gave us advance access to the article. Want to see it? Send it over, Lena typed back. The article appeared in her email moments later. Lena opened it with her heart racing, knowing that this would shape how millions of people understood her story. The headline read, Lena Vale, the tech CEO, who built an empire. Her husband never saw. The piece was long, detailed, and surprisingly nuanced. It covered her background, her education at MIT, the founding of Vale Innovations. It quoted Catherine Mills praising the scholarship program, quoted several tech industry analysts calling Lena's company revolutionary and years ahead of the competition. And then, in the final third of the article, it addressed the marriage, not with salacious details, but with carefully observed facts. Adrian's removal of her name from the guest list, the presence of Sloane Kerr as his date, the visible shock on his face during the revelation. The article didn't need to editorialize. The facts spoke for themselves. The conclusion was powerful. In an industry that often celebrates overnight success, Lena Vale's story is a reminder that some of the most impressive achievements happen in quiet determination, building something real while the world looks elsewhere. Her husband may have failed to see her brilliance, but the tech industry and Manhattan society are finally paying attention. Lena read it twice, then sent it to Jessica Caldwell with a note. Is this going to help or hurt the divorce proceedings? Jessica's response came quickly. Help. It establishes you as sympathetic, accomplished, and reasonable. Exactly the narrative we want. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of messages and phone calls. Tech reporters wanting follow-up quotes, foundation board members expressing support, more emails from women sharing their own stories of being underestimated and overlooked. And finally, just before midnight, one more message from Adrian. I read the Times piece. Is this really how you want to remember our marriage, as something that held you back? Lena stared at the message for a long time. Part of her wanted to respond with anger, wanted to list every moment of dismissal, every casual cruelty, every time he'd made her feel small. But another part of her, the part that was learning to live in her new reality, recognized the futility of that conversation. She typed simply, I want to remember our marriage as something that taught me who I am and what I deserve. I hope someday you can see it that way too. She hit send, then turned off her phone and stood at the windows one more time, looking out at the city that was becoming hers in ways she'd never imagined. Tomorrow, the Times article would hit newsstands and go live online. Tomorrow, the world would read her story and form their own opinions. Tomorrow, the next phase of this transformation would begin. But tonight, Lena just stood in the quiet of her hotel suite and felt the weight of 6 years lifting off her shoulders. She'd claimed her truth. She'd stepped into her power. And whatever came next, she would face it as herself. Fully visible, fully realized, and finally, completely free. The Times article broke at 6 a.m., and by 7 the entire city seemed to be talking about it. Lena's phone started buzzing before she'd even finished her first cup of coffee. Messages flooding in from people she'd known for years and strangers who felt connected to her story. The narrative had taken on a life of its own, spreading beyond tech industry circles into mainstream conversation about marriage, ambition, and what it meant to be truly seen. Marcus called at 7:30. "Boss, we need to talk about the product launch. It's scheduled for tomorrow, and with all this attention, we're expecting massive coverage. Are you ready for that?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Lena said, looking out at the Manhattan skyline that seemed sharper and clearer than it ever had before. "Good. Because I've been fielding calls all morning from major outlets wanting exclusive coverage. TechCrunch, Wired, Bloomberg. Everyone wants to be there when you unveil the new platform." Marcus paused. "Also, 3 more Fortune 500 companies reached out overnight requesting meetings. Your calendar is going to be insane for the next month." "I can handle insane," Lena said. "I've been training for this for 4 years." After they hung up, Lena spent the morning preparing for the launch, reviewing presentation materials, and coordinating with her team. The new AI platform represented everything Veil Innovations had been working toward, a system that would fundamentally change how corporations managed sensitive data, combining security with unprecedented efficiency. It was the kind of breakthrough that would cement the company's position in the industry, and tomorrow it would belong to the world. At 11 a.m., Jessica Caldwell called with an update on the divorce proceedings. Adrian's attorney reached out this morning. "They want to negotiate a settlement rather than go to court." Jessica's voice carried satisfaction. The Times article changed the calculus. Fighting you publicly would only make Adrian look worse, and they know it. "What are they proposing?" Lena asked. "Essentially what we suggested. You keep Veil Innovations and all associated assets. He keeps the partnership track and his separate property. Joint assets split equitably. They're asking for slightly more than we initially offered, but nothing unreasonable. I think we can close this within 2 months if both sides stay cooperative." Relief washed through Lena, unexpected in its intensity. "That's faster than I thought possible." "It is. But Lena, I need to warn you, there's a catch. They're requesting that you sign a non-disparagement agreement. Essentially, neither of you would be allowed to speak publicly about the marriage or the divorce in negative terms." Lena considered this carefully. Part of her bristled at the idea of being silenced, even partially, but another part recognized that she'd already said everything that mattered. The truth was public. The world knew her story. What else was there to say? "I can agree to that," she said finally. "I'm not interested in dragging this out or turning it into a media circus. I just want to move forward." "Smart. I'll draft a response accepting their terms with a few minor adjustments. We should have this wrapped up before the new year." After Jessica hung up, Lena sat very still, processing what this meant. By January, she would be legally free of Adrian Cross. The marriage that had defined 6 years of her life would be officially over, reduced to paperwork and settlement agreements. It should have felt sad, or at least bittersweet. Instead, it felt like opening a window in a room that had been closed too long. The afternoon brought the Forbes photo shoot, scheduled in a sleek studio in Chelsea. The photographer was a woman in her 30s who'd done covers for half the tech industry's major figures, and she approached the shoot with an artist's eye for what made people compelling. "I want to capture you as you are right now," she said, adjusting lighting while Lena stood in the midnight blue dress she'd worn to the gala. Not performing confidence, not trying to project anything, just you, in your power, completely authentic. They shot for 2 hours, moving between different setups and outfits. The formal CEO portrait in a sharp suit, the candid shots at a desk surrounded by monitors showing lines of code, the powerful image of Lena standing at floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, backlit by the city she'd conquered. "Perfect," the photographer said after the final shot. "You're a natural. Most people have to fake this kind of presence. You just exist in it. I've had a lot of practice existing in spaces where people didn't think I belonged, Lena said quietly. Well, you belong everywhere now. The whole world is about to know it. That evening, Lena attended Victoria's dinner party at her Upper East Side townhouse. The other guests were exactly who Victoria had promised: women who ran foundations, corporations, nonprofits, media companies. Women who'd built real power in a city that didn't always make space for them. Victoria greeted Lena at the door with a warm embrace. "You're the woman of the hour. Everyone's been dying to meet you properly." The dinner was intimate, just 8 women around a table laden with beautiful food and better wine. The conversation flowed easily, touching on everything from tech industry trends to political fundraising to the challenges of leading organizations in a changing world. "I read the Times piece this morning," said Margaret Chen, who ran a venture capital firm that had funded 3 unicorn companies. "What struck me most was how you maintained your privacy for so long. In this industry, everyone wants to be the face of their company. You chose invisibility." "I chose focus," Lena corrected gently. "Being invisible meant I could build without distraction, without people second-guessing my decisions based on my age, or my gender, or my relationship status." "And now?" asked Diana Rothstein, a foundation director who'd been in philanthropy for 30 years. "Now that you're very visible, very public, how does that change your approach?" Lena considered the question carefully. "I think it means I have a responsibility to be authentic. There are women watching my story who are trying to figure out their own paths. If I perform some version of myself that isn't real, I'm not helping them. I'm just adding to the noise." But Victoria smiled from the head of the table. "That's exactly right. The most powerful thing you can do is exist fully as yourself and let others see what that looks like." As the evening progressed, Lena found herself relaxing into the conversation, sharing more of her story than she'd planned. She talked about the isolation of building a company in secret, about the cognitive dissonance of being brilliant in one room and invisible in the next, about the moment she'd decided that freedom mattered more than comfort. "What surprised you most about finally being public?" asked Rachel Morrison, a media executive whose company owned 3 major publications. "How many people reached out to say they'd had similar experiences?" Lena said. "I thought my story was unique, specific to my circumstances. But the emails I've been getting, the messages from women who felt unseen in their own lives, it's overwhelming. I had no idea how common this was." "It's incredibly common," Diana said quietly. "Most women have some version of the experience of being underestimated, dismissed, or overlooked. What's rare is having the courage to do what you did, to claim your full power publicly despite the personal cost." "Was the cost worth it?" Margaret asked. Lena thought about Adrian, about the penthouse she'd left behind, about the life that had looked perfect from the outside but felt hollow from within. She thought about the Greenwich hotel suite that was temporary but felt more like home than anywhere she'd lived in years. She thought about the company she'd built, the platform launching tomorrow, the scholarship program that would change lives. "Yes," she said simply. "Every bit of it." The conversation shifted to practical matters. Victoria's ideas about expanding Lena's board of directors, Margaret's suggestions for potential investors if Lena ever changed her mind about staying private, Diana's insights into managing public perception during personal transitions. "The key," Diana said, "is to control your narrative before someone else does it for you. You've done that brilliantly so far. The Times piece, the Gala reveal, even the way you've handled the divorce. You're shaping the story instead of reacting to it." "I had good teachers," Lena said, looking at Victoria. "You had good instincts," Victoria corrected. "We just helped you trust them." By the time the dinner ended around 11, Lena felt something she hadn't expected, a sense of belonging. These women understood the complexities of navigating power, the careful balance between authenticity and strategy, the weight of being watched and analyzed and judged. They'd all survived their own versions of the journey Lena was on, and their presence felt like validation that she was on the right path. Walking back to the Greenwich through the cool November night, Lena checked her phone and found a message from Marcus with a link to an article. The headline read, "Sloan Kerr speaks, I didn't know he was married to a tech CEO." Lena's stomach tightened as she read the piece. It was exactly what Marcus had predicted. Sloane painting herself as an innocent victim, claiming she'd been told the marriage was essentially over, that Adrian had portrayed Lena as unambitious and disconnected. The article included carefully posed photographs of Sloane looking vulnerable and wronged, and quotes about how shocking the Gala revelation had been. But the comments section told a different story. Reader after reader called out the obvious holes in Sloane's narrative, pointing out that she'd knowingly attended a professional event as the date of a married colleague, that her claim of innocence didn't hold up to scrutiny. The public wasn't buying the victim act. Lena texted Marcus. Saw the article. Not worried. His response came immediately. Good. Neither am I. She's just making herself look worse. How was dinner? Enlightening. These women are incredible. You're one of them now, boss. Better get used to it. Back at the hotel, Lena prepared for the next day's launch with meticulous attention to detail. She reviewed her presentation notes, checked in with her team to ensure all the technical aspects were ready, confirmed the media coverage and attendance list. This was the moment Veil Innovations stepped fully into the public eye, not just as a company with a compelling origin story, but as a serious player in the tech industry. Around midnight, her phone buzzed with an unexpected call. Adrian. Lena stared at the screen for a long moment, then answered. Adrian? Lena. His voice sounded different, quieter, less certain. I saw Sloane's article. So did everyone else, Lena said. I didn't know she was going to do that. I didn't ask her to. Adrian paused. I know you probably don't believe me, but I'm not trying to make this worse than it already is. Then why are you calling? Lena asked, not unkindly. Because I owe you an apology. A real one, not just some legal non-disparagement agreement. Adrian took a breath. I was wrong, Lena, about everything. I underestimated you, dismissed you, made you feel invisible in your own life. And I'm sorry. Lena sat down slowly on the edge of the hotel bed, processing the words she'd waited 6 years to hear. Thank you for saying that. I don't expect it to change anything. I know we're getting divorced. I know you've moved on. But I needed you to know that I understand what I did. What I lost. His voice cracked slightly. You built something extraordinary, and I was too blind and too arrogant to see it. That's on me. All of it. Yes, Lena said quietly. It is. The Times article said you wanted to be seen. That's all you ever wanted, just to be seen for who you actually were. Adrian was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry I couldn't give you that. I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to hide to be safe. Lena felt tears prick her eyes, unexpected and sharp. Not tears of sadness, but of release. The final letting go of hope that Adrian would ever understand what he'd done. I appreciate you saying this, she said. I do. But Adrian, I need you to understand something. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt. I'm just done. The apology is nice, but it doesn't change where we are or where we're going. I know, Adrian said. I'm not asking for another chance. I'm just asking for, I don't know, forgiveness maybe, or at least acknowledgement that I finally see you clearly. I can give you that, Lena said. I forgive you, Adrian, and I hope you figure out how to see people clearly going forward. You're not a bad person. You were just a person who couldn't see past your own perspective. There's a difference. They talked for a few more minutes, the conversation surprisingly civil and almost warm. Adrian told her about his leave of absence from the firm, his plans to do some serious self-reflection, his recognition that he needed to change fundamental things about how he approached relationships. Lena listened, offered measured responses, and felt the last threads of their connection dissolve into something gentler. Not love, not even friendship, but a kind of mutual recognition of shared history. Good luck with the launch tomorrow, Adrian said finally. I mean that. What you've built is incredible, and the world deserves to see it. Thank you, Lena said. Good luck with everything else. After they hung up, Lena sat in the quiet of her hotel room, processing the conversation. She'd gotten the apology she'd needed, the acknowledgement that what happened wasn't her fault or her failure. And strangely, it didn't feel like victory or vindication. It just felt like closure. She slept deeply that night, more peacefully than she had in months, and woke at dawn feeling clear and focused. Today was the launch. Today, Veil Innovations would show the world what 4 years of quiet brilliance had created. The presentation was scheduled for 10 a.m. at a sleek event space in Tribeca. By 9:30, the room was packed with journalists, tech industry analysts, potential clients, and curious observers drawn by the story of the secret CEO who'd taken Manhattan by storm. Cameras lined the back wall. News outlets had sent their top tech reporters. The energy was electric. Marcus found Lena backstage where she was doing final checks on the demo. Sold out crowd. Standing room only. Half the tech industry is watching the live stream. No pressure. Lena smiled. I've been preparing for this moment for 4 years. I'm ready. At exactly 10 a.m., she walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. The audience was onto their feet before she'd even reached the podium, the same standing ovation that had greeted her at the gala, but this time it felt different. This wasn't about her personal story or her marriage drama. This was about the work, the real work. Thank you, Lena said, waiting for the room to settle. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your interest in what we've built at Veil Innovations. She launched into the presentation with confidence born from knowing every detail intimately. The new AI platform represented a fundamental breakthrough in data security and machine learning, a system that could adapt to threats in real time while maintaining unprecedented efficiency. She walked the audience through the technology, demonstrated its capabilities with live demos, and showcased testimonials from the Fortune 100 companies already using beta versions. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Questions flew from every corner of the room, technical queries from developers, strategic questions from potential clients, investment inquiries from venture capitalists who suddenly wanted in despite Veil Innovations' private status. What made you decide to stay private for so long? One journalist asked. Control, Lena answered simply. I wanted to build something excellent without the pressure of quarterly earnings reports or investor expectations. Privacy gave me the freedom to focus on what mattered, creating technology that would genuinely improve how organizations operate. And now that you're public, what changes? Another reporter called out. Nothing about the company's core mission, Lena said. We're still committed to excellence, still focused on creating technology that makes a difference. The only thing that's changed is that more people know who we are. After the formal presentation concluded, Lena spent 2 hours in individual meetings with key clients and partners. The enthusiasm was palpable. Everyone wanted to work with Veil Innovations, wanted to be associated with the company that had emerged from the shadows with such spectacular timing. Around 2 p.m., Marcus pulled her aside with news that made her grin. Boss, we just got confirmation. 3 more Fortune 100 partnerships signed today. Our revenue projections for next quarter just doubled. Doubled? Lena repeated. Doubled. The publicity around your story combined with how solid the technology is. It's a perfect storm. We're going to have to hire about 50 people just to keep up with demand. That evening, back at the Greenwich, Lena finally had a moment to breathe and process everything that had happened. The launch had exceeded every expectation. The technology was being hailed as revolutionary. Orders and partnership requests were flooding in faster than her team could process them. And somewhere across the city, in the penthouse they'd once shared, Adrian was probably watching the news coverage and understanding fully, completely, what he'd failed to see for 6 years. Victoria called just as Lena was thinking about ordering dinner. I've been watching the coverage all day. Darling, you were magnificent. The presentation, the interviews, all of it. You commanded that room like you were born to it. Thank you, Lena said. It felt good, really good. I imagine it did. Listen, I wanted to give you some advice, if you're open to it. Victoria's voice took on a more serious tone. You're going to get a lot of opportunities in the coming months. Investment offers, board positions, speaking engagements, all of it. The temptation will be to say yes to everything, to prove yourself over and over. Don't fall into that trap. What should I do instead? Lena asked. Be selective, protect your time and your energy. Remember that you've already proven yourself. You don't need to keep doing it. Focus on what genuinely excites you, what aligns with your values, and let everything else go. That's how you build a sustainable life, not just a successful career. That's good advice, Lena said quietly. I learned it the hard way. I'm hoping you can learn it the easy way. Victoria paused. Also, I wanted to let you know, the Foundation Board voted today to name the scholarship program after you, the Lena Veil Scholars Program. We thought it was fitting. Lena felt tears well up, sudden and unexpected. Victoria, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just keep being exactly who you are. Keep showing young people what's possible when you refuse to stay small. Victoria's voice softened. I'm proud of you, Lena. I know we've only known each other a few days, but I'm genuinely proud of what you've accomplished and how you've handled all of this. After they hung up, Lena stood at the windows one more time, looking out at the city that had transformed from Adrian's territory into her own. The lights were starting to glow as evening settled over Manhattan, and somewhere in that sprawling landscape of buildings and ambition, hundreds of thousands of people were going about their lives, unaware that one woman's choice to step into her power had rippled out into something bigger than anyone had anticipated. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jessica Caldwell. Adrian's attorney just sent over the final settlement agreement. Everything we discussed, all terms accepted. If you're comfortable with it, we can sign next week and file the divorce petition. It'll be finalized by mid-January. Lena typed back, I'm comfortable with it. Let's move forward. Another message, this time from Marcus. Forbes cover just got finalized. Hits newsstands next week. The headline is Lena Vale, the CEO who rewrote the rules. You're going to love it. And finally, a message from an unknown number that turned out to be Patricia Morrison, the woman who'd written to Lena after the gala. I saw the launch today. Watched it with my daughter, who's studying computer science. She said you're her hero now. Thank you for showing her what's possible. Lena read that message 3 times, feeling the weight and wonder of what her visibility meant. She'd thought her story was just about leaving a bad marriage and claiming her company, but it had become something bigger, a blueprint for other women trying to find their way out of situations where they felt unseen and undervalued. The responsibility of that was enormous, but so was the opportunity. Over the next 2 weeks, Lena's life settled into a new rhythm. She moved from the Greenwich into a beautiful loft in Tribeca, smaller than the Park Avenue penthouse, but entirely hers, filled with light and possibility. She hired the 50 employees Marcus had predicted they'd need, building out Vale Innovations' team with brilliant people who shared her vision. She gave interviews to Forbes, Bloomberg, TechCrunch, and the Wall Street Journal, each one helping to cement her position as a serious voice in the tech industry. The divorce papers were signed in Jessica Caldwell's office on a cold December morning, both parties present but saying little beyond the necessary legal acknowledgments. Adrian looked older somehow, worn down by the past month's events. But he also looked more genuine than Lena had seen him in years. Like losing everything had forced him to find some core of authenticity he'd been missing. I hope you find what you're looking for, Lena said as they prepared to leave. I hope you've already found it, Adrian replied. And there was something in his eyes, genuine respect, maybe even admiration, that told her he finally understood who she'd been all along. The Forbes cover came out 3 days before Christmas. Lena stood in a newsstand and stared at her own face looking back at her from the magazine rack. Confident, powerful, completely herself. The issue sold out within hours, went into emergency reprints, became one of the year's best-selling editions. Victoria's dinner party on New Year's Eve was a celebration of everything the past 2 months had brought. The same 8 women gathered around Victoria's table, this time toasting to Lena's success, to new beginnings, to the power of authenticity. What's next for you? Margaret asked as midnight approached. You've built the company, made the Forbes cover, finalized the divorce. What's the next mountain to climb? Lena considered the question carefully. 6 months ago, she would have said freedom was the goal. 3 months ago, she would have said visibility. But now, standing on the other side of the transformation, she understood that what came next was something deeper. I want to build a life that matches who I actually am, she said, not performing success or proving anything to anyone, just existing fully, doing work that matters, connecting with people who see me clearly. That's what I want next. That's the hardest thing of all, Diana said quietly, and the most worthwhile. At midnight, with the city erupted in celebration of the new year, Lena stood at Victoria's window overlooking Central Park and felt something settle in her chest. A sense of rightness, of being exactly where she was supposed to be. Her phone buzzed with messages as the clock struck 12. Marcus sending champagne emojis and congratulations. Catherine sharing foundation updates and warm wishes. Jessica Caldwell's professional but kind note about starting the year on solid ground. And one message that surprised her, from Adrian. Just 2 words. Thank you. Lena looked at those words for a long time, understanding what they meant. Thank you for being brave enough to leave. Thank you for not staying small. Thank you for showing me what I couldn't see. She typed back. You're welcome. Happy New Year, Adrian. Then she deleted his number from her phone, erasing the last digital connection to a life she'd already left behind. January brought new challenges and new opportunities. The Lena Vale Scholars Program accepted its first cohort of students, 20 brilliant young people who'd been overlooked by traditional systems but had the potential to change the world. Vale Innovations expanded into new markets, hired another 100 employees, and established itself as one of the most innovative companies in the tech sector. And Lena herself became a sought-after voice on everything from entrepreneurship to work-life balance to navigating public scrutiny. She spoke at conferences, wrote op-eds for major publications, and used her platform to amplify stories of other women who were building things in the shadows. 6 months after the gala, Lena sat in her Tribeca loft on a warm spring evening, working on a presentation for an upcoming tech conference. Her phone rang with a call from Marcus. Boss, I just got off the phone with the White House. They want you to join a technology advisory council. They're looking for innovative voices to help shape digital policy. Lena set down her coffee, processing this information. The White House. Yeah. Apparently your story resonated with some people in the administration. They think your perspective on building ethical technology would be valuable. Marcus paused. Are you interested? Lena looked around her loft, at the workspace she'd created, at the life she'd built from scratch, at the freedom she'd claimed inch by inch and day by day. She thought about the woman she'd been 2 years ago, hiding in plain sight, building something real but keeping it secret. And she thought about the woman she was now, fully visible, fully powerful, fully herself. Yes, she said, I'm interested. Because that was who Lena Vale was now. Someone who said yes to challenges, who stepped into spaces where she belonged, who refused to make herself smaller for anyone's comfort. The woman who'd walked into that gala ballroom 6 months ago had been making a statement. But the woman sitting in the Tribeca loft on this spring evening was living a truth that went deeper than any single moment of revelation. She was Lena Vale, CEO, and founder, philanthropist, and advocate. A woman who'd built an empire in the shadows and claimed it in the light. She was exactly who she'd always been, just finally, completely, gloriously visible. And she was just getting started.